Hello everyone and welcome back to more AEW on TEW 2020. We are finally in the month of February, which is the month for Revolution, but right now we're still on some Dynamites and Darks, so let's begin with Dark. Zack Sabre Jr. makes his in-ring debut, defeating Griff Garrison. The Future, which is the team of Donnie and Leo Lambert, both generated people, they defeat Myreed and Pineapple Pete. Both of the generated guys are actually really good, but again, they're still a ways off. Stu Grayson defeats Scorpio Sky. Jurassic Express defeats Willpower. Jonathan Gresham defeats Joey Janela. Tara Shirk defeats The Bunny. Anna Jay defeats Britt Baker. Jacob Fatu defeats David Fudra. And in our main event, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara defeat the Butcher and the Blade. As always, our show of Dynamite begins with the D&D segment. This one, for this past week on Brandon Cutler's D&D Hour, we have, they come up to another village, and they hear about some queen out in the distance, as well as they're at war with some other empress, of course, referencing Charlotte and Kana. Pretty short one for this time. Things will get exciting starting in the next week. Trust me. We will get to how this ties in with some other things at a later point. Don't worry. Our show opens up with Cody defeating Shima. And afterwards, Cody demands that Pac comes to the stage, and, he comes to the ring with the belt, and, Pac actually does. And Cody says, Pac, what you've done is blatantly against management, but since I've gotten backlash from some of our road agents for firing Brody Lee, I can't really in good conscience fire you. But nonetheless, if you hand me my title back right now, I'll give you that TNT title match at Revolution that you want. Even if you aren't number one in the rankings, I can't deny how much of an asset to AEW that you are. I would absolutely hate to make someone like you mad, especially with your companions. So how's about it? And Pac just looks at Cody for a second before handing the title back to him. However, instead of Pac's music playing to cue him out, MJF's music plays, and he comes onto the ramp and he says, "Such a touching reunion, isn't it? Cody reunited with his creation. I'm not really one that's too involved with that cheap imitation title. I have a real prize to go after, but I am out here for a reason. Last week, that arrogant god, Jon Moxley, had the gall to imply that I was someone who couldn't win on my own. That really gets to me. Cody, buddy, we've had our history, no doubt, but right now, you're TNT champion, and you're one of only 5 people in this entire company to hold one of those belts. Since apparently beating Adam Page isn't enough to have Moxley anticipate me, I have a better idea. Cody, next week's main event, how about we meet up again? Don't worry, Pac, you'll still keep your shot at Cody. I don't want Cody's title, because that belt is meaningless. I actually have to go into booking screen because I actually didn't have a second segment. I wrote this into the notepad, and I can't access the notepad from here. It doesn't look like, so give me a moment. Alright, so back to this. It's a good looking belt, I won't lie. It's better than that hunk of junk that you debuted it with, but it's something for the B players. If we're honest, Cody, that title only exists because you weren't good enough to win the world title. Because you couldn't be content with sitting around with your buddies and Tony Khan without having some fancy bit of hardware around your waist. I know, I'll make a TV title. You know, I have to admit, I respect the fact that there is something for those B players. That there is something for the people who don't really deserve a shot at that world title. You know, unlike myself. But when you notice that the only people to hold that belt are an executive vice president for the company and someone who that same EVP fired, well, you start to notice a trend. You can keep your vanity title, Cody. I don't want it. But unless you're scared of losing to me, you're going to accept that match for next week. So yeah, MJF just really going in on Cody. You know, he wants to prove that he is the best, and, you know, what better way than beating the TNT champ? In a non-title match, of course. After this, we see Miroslav backstage. He's still angry about not being booked for a match, and Sydal, just as he did, I believe it was last week, but I couldn't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks prior, approaches Miro, and he tries to bring him in for some anger management. Miro tries to punch Matt Sydal, but his punch is caught by Lance Archer. Sydal takes a deep breath, and he asks Miro once again, hey, you want to join my anger management thing? And Miro's like, no. But Matt Sydal gives another stipulation, saying, alright, next week, you and Lance will have a match, and if Lance wins, Miro will join the anger management. Miro still looks very pissed, he looks very angry about this. He's like, alright, fine. And Matt Sydal's like, alright, Lance, you can let him go. You'll have a match next week. So a very big match, actually, between Lance Archer and Miroslav. After this, Darby Allin defeats Shawn Spears with a coffin drop. Then afterwards, Fred Yehi and Davey Boy Smith Jr. come to the ring, and they beat down Darby, who's unable to fight off the numbers, especially when Shawn Spears gets up and starts to help out. However, there's no music, there's no fanfare, as Jeff Hardy rushes out from backstage to chase off Tully's boys, who they only decide not to fight off Jeff Hardy because Tully tells them, hey, back off, you're outmatched here. Jeff is yelling at Tully, and Darby, he's, you know, like, in the corner. Like, I'm imagining Darby is in the corner by the ramp. Jeff Hardy is, like, leaning over the ropes that are towards the hard cam. Tully's guys are, like, slowly moving out around them. Jeff's yelling at them, and Darby, you know, he has this look of like, alright, I wasn't expecting Jeff Hardy. He's processing it for a little bit, but eventually you can kind of see, like, a shift on his face. It's like, alright, I want to fight Jeff Hardy. So yeah, we brought in, you know, Jeff Hardy. And that's actually a really good gimmick. Yeah, his contract ran up, and so I brought him in. We have the Hardy Boys back together. How will they get involved with Matt Hardy being stuck in D&D world? We'll find out. After this, a match promised from last week. Brutality Inc. defeats the Blood Brothers after Dijak pins the Butcher. Killer Kelly came in and she attacked Penta and Phoenix during the match. So, yeah. Big win for definitely the underdogs. I think only Pillman Jr. and Dijak are above the Butcher and the Blade. Phoenix and Penta are way ahead of the other guys, so that's pretty big. I have to remove Phoenix from, or Eddie from, yeah, what Phoenix said. After this, huge brawl breaks out. There's a bunch of punching. Jacob Fatu comes out to help out his buddies alongside Eddie Kingston. Bunny also comes in to help out. Fun times for all. It's just a big battle. Yeah, eventually the Eddie's guys come out on top. Brutality Inc., they leave the ring. Yeah. After this, Renee Paquette is interviewing Kairi Hojo about what happened last week with the Rose Garden and Sting. Kairi says, while I respect Sting for what he's done here in America, I'm not interested in joining forces with a retired veteran like himself. I would prefer to work alongside fellow peers, fellow Joshi peers, such as Mayu Iwatani or Hikaru Shida, if they're willing. As for the Rose Garden, their antics and their way of life has irritated me. They go out there and demand only those they deem attractive, while bullying those they disagree with. I can't stand that, and while I don't wish to join Sting, I trust his guidance to fight against Garza, while I can take on Penelope, Brandy, and Vipress. You know, she's probably implying that she will need the help of some other people. We do have plenty of Joshis around, so Kairi can probably bring at least one of them in. Actually, that's a surprisingly good segment. After this, Kota defeats Bandito. And Kota, just like last week, takes the mic, sits in the middle of the ring, he says, "I gotta be honest about something, Kenny." I'm gonna be honest about something, Kenny. This is backstage information. Back in October, when my contract with New Japan was running out, I started to watch Dynamite intently. I saw what you were doing, I saw how you've turned on everything I knew about you. That's why I called Tony, that's why I wanted to come to AEW. I wanted to bring you back to the Kenny that I love. Kenny, I want you to regain that fire. I want you to face me at Revolution. Kota, I think this is the first time I've even implied, well, okay. Judging by booking, they were going to have a match, that's how wrestling works, but now, Kota finally laying down the gauntlet. He wants to properly face Kenny Omega at Revolution. We'll see how Kenny responds. Obviously not this week, but whatever. Renee, she gets more work as she interviews Tenille and Deonna Purrazzo. And most likely, Tenille is talking. She says, "We've made it well known that we're the cream of the crop here in the women's division, that we are the most important women in this company, because we're on the same level as the future AEW World Champ, the future of the business in MJF. So to see someone like Shotzi Blackheart running around like she's someone that can hold a candle to us, I'm not okay with that. In fact, and before Tenille can even continue, Shotzi, she just runs in, rushes them off screen, beats down two of them, runs off before they can get up. Probably, before they cut to commercial, I would imagine. Tenille and Deonna, they get up, they rush out, they're trying to beat down Shotzi, who has just been a thorn in their side because she is Shotzi. After commercial, most likely, Kurt Angle is in the middle of the ring, and him and Layla Hirsch are in suits, while the rest of FTR, Zack Sabre Jr., and Charles Betts are in they're in the ring gear. Kurt says, "Jericho, we have had our battles over the years in the ring, but now I think it's time that we go about and start seeing who the better coach outside of the ring is. Jericho, I want 4 of your guys to face against the tag team champions, Charles Betts and Zack Sabre Jr. Angle waits a moment before Jericho's music hits, and the Inner Circle come to ringside for the main event. Despite Kurt wanting to see who the better coach is, Jericho is getting into the match himself, though not winning. FTR defeats the Inner Circle after Zack Sabre Jr. submits Jake Hager. Very good performances from everyone. The weak links being Hager and Austin. Ace Austin, he benefited from Kota Ibushi offering to put him over. So on the live events, the lesser shows that I have, some free pop for him. What do we got for our dirt sheet? Anything that was a penalty? Mostly inconsistency and declining physical ability. But that ends off our show. Ugh. We're starting to dip a little bit. I think we're really at like 1 point below what would give us an increase in popularity in every region, but it's fine. We're still continuing our road to Revolution, so we get to that in the next week.